courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode number 455. I am Andrew in our forum, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. I'm joined as always by my co-host Derek. He is D for3 in our forum, and also on Twitter at D for384 and D for3G. Derek, good to be talking to you as always. How's it going?
It's going well, Andrew. How are you?
Can't complain.
Perfect. So for our listeners, this episode will be mostly centered around NBA 2K23. We will be giving our full list of pros and cons. In a sense, this will be a final review, and we will discuss where we believe NBA 2K23 stands in the series overall. So I know that I have a long list of pros and cons related to depth, graphics, gameplay, and I know you put something together as well. But for our retro heads, I promise you that we will be discussing some of the classics on this show, whether it be during the NBA 2K23 discussion or later on when we hit the mailbag and we talk about NBA Live 2003 dunk ratings.
Yeah, you can't really keep us away from the retro titles.
No, in fact, it was kind of a sad week in a way because you and I weren't able to connect on Parsec and play anything. I think both of us were super tied up in other obligations and kind of doing our own thing. But let's make it a goal to jump on NBA Jam on Fire Edition and play some Road Trip. We can also, revisit NBA Live 2000 again if you're up for that. But yeah, we have an endless library of basketball titles that we can revisit.
Twist my arm, I'll play some more on Fire Edition, I suppose, if I really must. And 2000 again, I'll hold my nose and play that classic, I suppose. But no, I'm looking forward to that. We will tee that up over the next week, and I'm sure share some videos with our viewers on YouTube. And we really appreciate all the support we're getting there as we upload more and more content these days. But yeah, NBA 2K23, our... I guess maybe not our final word. We probably will have things to say about it moving forward. But there was a new patch. Patch 3.0 came out this past week, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying that. It's the game kind of in its final state, we assume. It is a Season 3 update for the most part, but also has likeness updates and a few gameplay tweaks. But it's more or less the 2K23, the NBA 2K23 that we're getting moving forward, Derek.
Yeah, that's why I thought this might be a good time to do the final review.
Definitely.
And kind of give our final thoughts in detail on this show, because I think this is probably going to be what we get for the rest of the game cycle for the most part. They'll probably do small tweaks here and there, but this is the gameplay, these are the features, etc. So yeah, I mean, I broke it down, and there's definitely a lot to love about NBA 2K23, but there's also some missteps that I definitely think they could improve on for the next edition of the game.
I think we're going to have a lot of the same thoughts on this. Gameplay-wise, easily I think the best of the next-gen version, or the current generation, whatever you want to call it, PS5, Xbox Series X, the best title to me. I would definitely rank it number one out of those three. I know it's not a big selection to clear the bar on, but it kind of ranks up there among games we've got over the past decade as well. There are games I'd put ahead of it. We will get into that. But again, as I've said in previous shows, I actually feel inclined to play 2K23, which is a huge step up for me over 2K21 and 2K22. And yeah, it has been enjoyable when I've played it, for the most part.
Yeah, and I've spent a ton of time on it playing co-op locally with my brother. We're over 40 games now into a Legends My NBA. And that's with 12-minute quarters. So we're playing every game. So it's a lot of hours on the game just in that season. And I've obviously played through a good chunk of domination in my team.
You've really got into that.
Obviously,
yeah.
I've been getting into it. It's been really fun to share the highlights with the community. It's been fun to upload the videos to the NLSC YouTube and to my own personal YouTube. And one thing, and this is part of the pros, and we'll get into that, one thing that's really good about NBA 2K23 is it can produce some amazing highlights. So for somebody like us who, we run the NLSC, we have the opportunity to share these events, these happenings and whatnot with the basketball gaming community, whether it be on the forum, whether it be on Twitter, on YouTube, Instagram, etc. Having a game that can produce great highlights, it makes you want to put it on. Right. and it makes you want to, upload that content and, create conversation around what happened. And you've seen it in the top 10 plays of the week, right? Every week we're getting some amazing highlights from NBA 2K23. In fact, this week's edition, which was year 2, week 29 of the NLSC top 10, had many NBA 2K23 highlights, from whether it's using the My NBA Eras rosters, whether it's a straight up My NBA. And the number one play, which was submitted by Teddy Bear the Gamer, was using the My NBA Eras rosters, and it was a spin move with Michael Jordan into the paint where he posterizes Xavier McDaniel. It looked awesome. The number 2 play in the countdown was me using Clyde Drexler throwing a no-look alley-oop to Julius Erving, who throws it down in traffic, and it can produce some amazing highlights.
We're seeing that a lot in the top 10. We're seeing that with you sharing your highlights on on our YouTube channel, on Twitter, and yeah, it just feels so satisfying when you throw it, when it all comes together like that. And that is a key ingredient in enjoying a basketball video game, that it does feel good, play to play, moment to moment. But when those big moments happen and they just really excite you, almost bring you out of your seat when you're playing it, yeah, that's what it's all about. And 2K23 definitely delivers on that front. Yeah, that alley-oop you had with Julius Erving was just ridiculous.
Yeah, and it doesn't get old making great highlights, so it definitely it encourages us to put the game on. So first I want to go over depth, and we're going to go over the pros first. So roster editing options. It's some of the best in sports gaming, if not the best. The import export DNA feature, the ability to create players, to edit basically every aspect of the player, whether it be the signatures, the tendencies, the attributes, swapping out accessories. And there's just so much to the roster editing, and you can edit the classic teams, the all-time teams, the G League teams, and then you have like roster sharing, and there is just so much to do and so much to customize that you could just spend hours not even setting foot on the virtual hardwood. You could just spend an endless amount of time going through making the rosters what you want them to be, creating rosters, sharing them with the community, etc. So like depth-wise, roster editing is just absolutely fantastic.
And it's vital. I mean, look at Live 19 and how weak roster editing was. Even in Live 18 it was better, but the fact that it took so long to come back into NBA Live, the fact that it wasn't as robust or bug-free as it needed to be, that is a big part of basketball gaming, to customize it as you need. If you are sticking with a title, obviously 2K is coming out with new titles where Live isn't, but if you are sticking with a title for a little bit longer, or if you're playing into the off-season, waiting for the new release to come, and you want to add some new rookies and move the plays around and update for transactions and play with some updated rosters before the new game comes out, yeah, that is why roster editing is so important, not to mention all the fantastic retro projects and everything else our community does.
But that's also why NBA 2K is still around and still flourishing, and NBA Live is dormant, right? Because NBA 2K, the developers, and whatnot, they have moved the game forward.
Yes.
They've enhanced the roster editing. They've enhanced the My NBA depth. They've added things like they did this year with the Jordan Challenge and My NBA Eras. So they've moved forward while NBA Live was taking features away, and even skipping years where they didn't even release their game. So, and before I move forward, depth-wise, in my opinion, NBA 2K23 has the most depth in sports video game history by far.
I'd agree.
And it has the most things that you can do as far as customization by far. And it is a huge pro. That's what has a lot of people spending hours upon hours on these games. So the next piece of depth is My NBA depth and customization. So stat tracking, it's elite in this game. The awards, the award races, the all-star voting, the, rookie of the month, the player of the month, etc. With the multi-user ability, you can control as many teams as you want. You can customize the league and bring in classic teams or all-time teams. You can do so much. You can do a season with only, you could choose like 12 teams and do a 12-team season, or you can do a 30-team season. all up to you. You can add more teams, just so much customization. You can create your own jerseys, your own courts, your own arenas. You can add sound effects. You can upload your creations to 2K Share, and people can use your season or your creations and whatnot. The My NBA depth is ridiculous, and it's been great for years. It's been great, since, I don't know, 2K16, 2K17.
Exactly, yeah.
And whatnot. And they just keep building on it. It's my brother and I are so into it. Every year now we go into My NBA. I create the jerseys, the court, the arena in general, and we'll put our team together of legends together, and we'll take the court, and it is awesome. We're always looking at the award races. We have stat goals, just awesome. So that hits for us. So even if we don't like the head-to-head as much, like human versus human, which I'll get into a little bit later, at least we can have a blast playing co-op. And that's the beauty of NBA 2K, right? You get all of these different options that you could sink your teeth into, and one of them is bound to pique your interest. So My NBA piques our interest in that way.
The continued innovation has been a strength of 2K's going back to the early 2000s when they were first starting to compete with NBA Live. And look, NBA Live, that used to be a staple of that series through the 90s, even through to about the mid-2000s. There were some missteps along the way, of course, but they were continuing to build on what they already had. And around about the mid-2000s, the late 2000s, they would introduce features like the Push Dynasty, for example, in NBA Live 08, and simply not really follow up on it. And the mode would actually get shallower again as of NBA Live 10, which was disappointing because Live 10 is otherwise a very strong title. Conversely, 2K has kept building and building and building, as you said. Now, there have been a couple of missteps. The first iteration of MyGM in 2K14, as much as I love 2K14, that was a misstep by locking basic functionality behind VC, by not having it as a sandbox mode. They immediately corrected course the next year with MyLeague, though, and having those two separate options. And, of course, now we have MyNBA, which is completely sandboxed. You can have that combined MyGM and MyLeague experience. And then you've got the My WNBA, you've got My Team, you've got My Career, you've got Play Now Online, you've got Blacktop, you've got the Jordan Challenge, My NBA Eras, now in 2K23. Just that amount of depth. There is so much of the game that you can not touch and still get your money's worth and spend hours with it. And that is absolutely a strength of 2K.
Oh, no, exactly. And like I said, for me, it's been My NBA and My Team. Those are the two big ones for me this year. So I have two pieces that I've been really able to get into. Just finishing up on My NBA depth, the ability to train your players, the scrimmage option, the freestyle option, all of that stuff. It all adds up to having just total control. And that's what you want in a mode. Next piece, as you mentioned, My NBA Eras, being able to play 3 classic seasons and import either your own draft class or somebody else's draft class for the following seasons. That is new to NBA 2K23, and it is an awesome touch. Sure, there's those issues where every now and then a court will be incorrect, or jerseys will be incorrect, or something won't carry over to the next season properly and whatnot, but the bones are there.
It's the first iteration.
And the fact,
yeah.
Right, and they could have easily released NBA 2K23 without this, right?
Definitely.
Like, they didn't have to add this depth. They could have just gone, with the promotion of the Jordan Challenge and really work hard on making that epic, which they did. It's an epic mode. It's an amazing mode. I don't know if anybody says epic anymore, but I do.
We do.
Yeah, we will, exactly. But they gave us the Jordan Challenge and My NBA Eras this year. And, they've Razor, old friend of the NLSC, and he's been working for 2K the last few years. He has made so many accurate and awesome cyber faces for those My NBA Eras seasons. So the attention to detail overall is improved throughout the game cycle as they've made updates. And there was a bunch of face updates in one of the most recent patches and whatnot. And they really seem to be working hard on my NBA errors to try to make it as complete as possible. You know, removing some of those created players, updating some of the ratings, fixing some of the issues that the community has noticed and whatnot. So my NBA errors, a huge deal, and that's going to be something great that you know they're not going to take out of the series. If anything, they're going to expand on it, because that's what 2K has historically done, is expand on content, not remove it. It's going to be something that gamers can enjoy and sink their teeth into for years to come.
And I'm sure they will improve that depth, improve that accuracy over the years, continue to add year-specific courts, etc. It is establishing the foundation, as you said. The other impressive part about my NBA eras, as I'm sure you'll agree, is the changing rules and formats of the league. I mean, we've talked to Leftos about this before when he was on the show, and he mentioned that these modes are traditionally designed for X amount of teams, the current number of teams in the NBA. So adding some, and certainly removing them, is a challenge to have the game programmed for that, because normally those modes are programmed to simulate what is in the NBA and the current rules and future changes. So implementing those changes to happen automatically, if you wish, just so much detail. I think people really need to appreciate that, because I certainly do, that they went to that much trouble with the rules as well, and having that change year by year. I'm sure there are a few inaccuracies here and there, as with the art updates, but again, that's something that I'm sure they'll fix moving forward. And I'm guessing they'll probably will add some more starting points here and there, especially as they look to celebrate LeBron's career as well. So yeah, it's just set them up to have this incredible depth for the franchise experience. And the fact that they're doing that at a time that all the focus, or most of the focus, is going towards online modes and the card collecting modes and everything else, was really refreshing to see.
Right, exactly, because there's no cost to jump into my NBA errors.
Yeah, and we don't want them to be either. We don't want that to happen.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
The other big bonus is they didn't have to go all out with their era filters, right? Mm-hmm. Or the scoreboards, or the halftime, presentation,
commentary teams,
the ESPN looking presentation for the early 2000s. They didn't have to go all out with that, but they did. There was a lot of attention to detail there. It looks absolutely fantastic, and I appreciate them for that, because I've heard a lot of positive commentary about past eras as a result, and we need more of that. There's a lot of people that are using these rosters and creating great highlights or having great gameplay sessions and everything. And hey, you never know, it could make some of these gamers, appreciate the past a little bit more. Maybe it makes them research the past a little bit more, like we did when we were younger, right? Video games were a launch pad a lot of times for that. Maybe they will go on YouTube and watch a team that they normally wouldn't watch, like a full game from a 91-92 season, or like from the early 80s or the early 2000s. So I like it from an historical and informational aspect as well. The Jordan Challenge. So they bring back the Jordan Challenge. That probably won't be in there next year. That's my guess. Because we had it in 2K11. We didn't have it again until NBA 2K23. Being able to relive Jordan's greatest career moments, bringing Mike Fratello back, doing the documentary aspect of it, and whatnot. People have been having a blast on that mode. It's very clear that they paid special attention to detail to the teams that were represented in that mode. Clyde Drexler seemed like he got a boost, and he plays more like Clyde Drexler now. He's more effective on the floor. They tried to make it as close to real life as possible. So, they could always do like a Kobe challenge or a LeBron challenge at some point, or something like that. There's definitely different ways they could utilize a challenge mode in future 2K. So I really don't want it to die. But at the same time, it was nice to see the Jordan Challenge come back for NBA 2K23.
Definitely. And it's not something that you do every year, that they're likely to do every year. I mean, I wouldn't object to it, don't get me wrong. But again, it's kind of that landmark celebration. It's 2K23, you celebrate the great 23, so it makes sense. Next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they do celebrate Kobe in 2K24. It would certainly make sense if they do that. And if this establishes the precedent for doing that documentary style, in addition to the gameplay and going through his legendary career as well, then they certainly could do that. I think that this establishes a precedent, possibly, for them to have some kind of challenge mode, some kind of retro historical mode that teaches gamers about the history of the sport, and for those of us who are around for it as well, us old heads, we get to relive that and enjoy it and maybe get some new perspectives from those interviews. But having a different mode every year, a different historical challenge mode, I think is so important. Again, I wouldn't object to it being Jordan every year and just changing up the games, but yeah, that's unlikely. It makes more sense to change it up every so often, or have, as they followed up the original Jordan Challenge with NBA's Greatest, where it focused on those 15 great players. If they wanted to expand that, do some kind of NBA 75 mode. I mean, there's only so many games you can really pack in. It's already a 150 gigabyte game, so there's going to be limitations. But some kind of historical challenge mode, I think, would be great to have moving forward as that offline mode. And as we've seen, you can tie it into My Career and My Team. Have people unlock rewards by completing those challenges. And this is what we always said, was it not, Derek, that if they bring back the Jordan Challenge, as they did, then simply give people a reason to play it by giving them rewards to earn in other modes. You and I, we can just enjoy it for what it is, and many others can as well. But people who may not have a reason to check it out otherwise, well, yeah, sure, if this gets me a free agent card or a jersey to wear in My Career, as it does, yeah, why not?
It's just more motivation to check it out.
Exactly.
I think they could do like a large VC payout if they, because VC isn't going anywhere.
No.
But like a large VC payout, by completing it, or per challenge and whatnot. Really tie it into those online modes, so you could enjoy it while you were offline, or if you only wanted to stay offline. But then at the same time, it would also benefit you if you did want to go online. So there's definitely a lot they could do with that. Continuing on the pros of the depth in the game, My Team, I think it's the best it's been since 2K15. It's the most time I've spent on it since 2K15. Having no contracts outside of the free agent cards is a massive win. Being able to use your favorite players night in and night out. Right now my starting lineup is Steph Curry, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Daryl Dawkins, and Wilt Chamberlain, and I have a deep bench, and none of these are contract cards, Andrew. So like for me, every domination challenge, any challenge where I can take my lineup into, I can use all of these players and I can have a blast. It's definitely made me play the mode a lot more. And like I stated earlier, you can just make some great highlights. And I want to give some credit to Mike Wong for making it a goal, like he stated, I think it was 2 years ago, that he wanted to put the fun back into the series. And I think you can agree that the fun, with 2K18 and whatnot, it had kind of been sucked out of
Definitely.
The series, especially with the early edition, the early games with the new motion system. So it's definitely fun to put on My Team and try to put together highlights. Endless amount of challenges you can take part in My Team. There's just hundreds of hours of content in that mode. It's something for the casual gamer, and it's also for somebody who wants a challenge. And they also added the ability to play part of the mode online co-op. I personally wish, for me and my brother, that the whole mode, like all the offline stuff that you can do, they would allow you to play co-op through all of that, like build your team with somebody else locally and, do domination locally and whatnot. That's wishful thinking on my part, but it is like something I'd love to see. But My Team is just so deep. And like I said, it's more fair to the gamer this year, and it's something that a casual gamer can sink their teeth into, or somebody who wants a real challenge.
Removing contracts is one of those small changes that is huge in the grand scheme of things, because it makes it so much fairer. It makes you want to play, as you said, because in the past, if you're playing the game and there's a connection error, as that does happen with 2K servers, or indeed, sometimes it is the end user, then you end up wasting a contract. Or if somebody rage quits or otherwise ruins the game, you've wasted a contract, and you need to worry about this consumable. And what I love about it is that they haven't replaced that with another system. I know we're not getting into the cons yet, but I'm not a big fan of having too many consumables in My Team. That is still a bit of an issue there for me. But simply removing contracts is really outweighs all of that, and it does make it a lot more fun. At the same time, you've got the agendas and everything that encourage you to use different cards and change it up and use your entire collection if you wish. Or if you don't want to and you don't want to focus on that and do just want to play with your best players and your favorite players, you can do that too. So there is that flexibility there. And as I'm sure we'll get into in a moment, just that plethora of sub-modes within My Team that kind of like the game as a whole, you can just focus on whatever mode appeals to you the most and not really touch anything else, and still, again, get your money's worth and have so many hours of fun just focusing on what you want to play. And again, it speaks to the importance of depth, that to compare it again to Live Ultimate Team in Live 19, where it's basically just a series of very repetitive challenges, very dry series
I
of
couldn't
challenges.
get into it.
Yeah,
I told you that. I told you that I tried to get into NBA Live 19 Ultimate Team, and it was dry as a bone.
Same. I just couldn't,
ridiculous challenges that, first off, there's like nothing challenging about it. Number one. Number two, it was just like sometimes you're jumping in for like these 2-minute games and whatnot, and the gameplay in Ultimate Team was just not very good in that game, too. And I just could not get into it. I also want to point out really quick with my team on NBA 2K23, stuff that's underrated that just kind of flies under the radar, stuff that they didn't need to have in this mode ever. But, the ability to create your own jerseys, create your own arena, kind of like you can do with, in your court, kind of like you can do in my NBA, the fact that the players you use, their stats get tracked, and that they have the card grading service. And if you use your player for a while and, you're putting up numbers and whatnot, you can send your card out to get graded. And I just got my Reggie Lewis back, and it got a 9.5 mid.
Oh, nice.
Right. And that allows me to get more my team points and whatnot if I have him in the lineup. But, they didn't have to have player stat tracking in my team. Right. But that's in there. So it's those little touches that I think a lot of people don't think about, because a lot of people also like to complain today, let's be honest. But, there's those little touches that, fly under the radar that I really appreciate.
And like you say, they're kept in the game, because that has been there for a couple of years now. But it doesn't fall by the wayside. Like, again, not to dump on Live too much, but that is a problem with Live that 2K has done so much better with, and not been an issue there. They've kept it in the game. Exactly.
Next thing that flies under the radar is, Blacktop is still there, and it's 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, and 5v5. So you still have that Blacktop option in there. You look at games like And One basketball from the mid-2000s, which I know you're very familiar with. Mm-hmm. You look at games like NBA Street, which is 3-on-3 full court. You look at games like NBA Jam, which is 2-on-2 and everything. Sure, you don't get that exact experience in NBA 2K23 Blacktop, but it's just more depth in the game, right? Where you can run those scenarios, and maybe you want to have like a street type game and whatnot, and that game allows you to do that. So the fact that Blacktop is still in there and you have all of these options, it's just more depth. It's just more stuff for you to sink your teeth into.
When I posted those one-on-one videos from Live 2001 and Live 2002, we got a couple of comments on those videos pointing out we've lost those modes from NBA Live over the years, way before the last generation. They disappeared from the game. So, once again, it's that staple of 2K, Blacktop, that's been in there for years. Is it the most popular mode? Definitely not. Do a lot of people play it every year? Probably not. But some people do. It's fun to have in the game. It's not taking anything away from anything else, so it's kept there. And it just adds to the overall depth. That's what's encouraging,
right? Yes. Because they were sitting around a table at some point, or they were on a Microsoft Teams conference call or Skype or Zoom or whatever they use, and everybody was on that call, and they were talking about what they're going to bring back. And Blacktop was on the list of what to keep. And, EA Sports had these conversations before too, and they're removing stuff from their game, right? From NBA Live. So it's encouraging to know that, in 2022, they're making an NBA basketball game for a series that they've had out since 1999, and they are not taking anything away from it. And I think that's key. So online connectivity for Play Now games, connect with friends. We've had that for a long time in video games, but it's in there. It's part of depth. It's just another option. Obviously my career, which you've spent more time on, it's there. The story is absolutely terrible. I can't even believe how bad the story is. And it's definitely not for you and I. Let's put it that way. And obviously there's a lot of, unfair aspects related to, not being fair to the game, or whether it be the item shop, how much VC you have to have in order to get your player up to an enjoyable level on the virtual hardwood. But my career is another option depth wise. And then the WNBA. So, you got the W, you got my WNBA, you got playoff mode, you got WNBA play now, you have 2K share setups and scenarios for the WNBA. It's great presentation wise. The super attention to detail on the players. Some of those cyber faces for the WNBA players are just absolutely spot on. They have a different commentary crew for the WNBA. The game feels different than the NBA mode. And I think that's really cool because it's the same motion engine, right? But when you're playing the WNBA, it feels like you're playing the women's game. And I think that's a really cool touch. And I think it's really cool that they were able to do that with the game. But there's a lot of options for the WNBA. And I think that's just more depth. And we've talked about it before. Sure, it's definitely not their most popular mode. Sure, the WNBA in general should be more popular, but it isn't. But they really made it a point to represent them in the game. And that's a nice, I would say, unselfish touch.
And it goes so much further than what Live did with its WNBA content. Easily. And I do love that they have made that there's that distinction between the gameplay, that they have talked to WNBA coaches, that they've bothered to implement the strategy that those teams play, that it's not just a reskinned NBA game with some different animations here and there and different body models. Obviously, they've gone that extra mile. That's always appreciated. And of course, because it isn't as popular, there isn't as much of a grind in the W. And of course, that also shows how that grind isn't necessary for a career mode. I'm sure I'll get into that shortly. But yeah, it just all adds to the depth. My career, even as much as I have the problems with the story and the how intrusive the quests are, the basic concept of quests, frankly, the VC payouts, etc., which again, I'm sure I'll talk about before this show is over, there is still that depth there to the mode. And you've got the offline experience, the NBA side of my career, and you've got several different ways to play online, the online team play modes. You have the park, you've got the rec, you've got 3v3 and 5v5 Pro-Am. There are problems with the online scene, but the point is there is something there that if you do enjoy what's on tap, there's options there, there's choice, and just like the rest of the game, that's so vital, the depth.
Right. So the last piece I want to speak to, depth related, is another thing that Live really couldn't get right. So they give you the option to do camera relative or absolute controls, right? In NBA 2K23, so if you play on broadcast cams, a lot of times camera relative is the way to go. That's what I use and whatnot. And they allow you to choose, is it going to be camera relative for pro stick defense, pro stick dribbling, etc. And just the amount of options that are in NBA 2K related to sliders, slider tweaks, controller configuration and everything, even though it often resets whenever there's a patch, which really pisses off the community sometimes. But the fact that there is so much depth related to, those things is just another big plus for the series. So I didn't want to discount that piece. But yeah, to summarize the pros for depth, and like I said, it's the best depth in sports gaming history. So, you have all the roster editing options. You have the classic teams, the all-time teams, the G League teams, roster sharing, all of that stuff. My NBA depth and customization, my NBA eras, Jordan Challenge, my team, Blacktop, playoff mode, my career, online connectivity for Play Now, all the WNBA stuff. It's absolutely loaded with content, and I think you would agree.
No, it absolutely is. There is something for everyone, for every basketball gamer. You can find an experience that will delight you on the virtual hardwood. If you have that versatility as a basketball gamer, if there's a wide array of modes that you can enjoy, which I describe myself that way, that if you can play my team, your franchise game, you enjoy my career, a bit of everything, you can go back and forth between those modes as they tickle your fancy, if you will, or if you just don't like what my team is like this year or my career, you can stick with franchise, my NBA eras, etc. And again, within modes like my team, you've got so many choices. If you don't want to play domination, you've got triple threat offline, triple threat online. You've got you've got clutch time, you've got all of those options, so it's very easy to find something that you will enjoy in 2K23, and that's what I love about it. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at NBA-live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
And I will say, too, depth is related. The gameplay goes with depth, right? The depth of the gameplay. But I did separate that section. So we're going to go over gameplay after we go over, the depth cons and then go over the graphics pros and cons. But make no mistake, depth in the actual gameplay, like the on-court action, is vital. And it does hit on some of those points as well. Depth cons, so many of the classic players and teams are rushed. Still, and there's still some copy paste signatures and tendencies and attributes and whatnot, and that frustrates me.
Absolutely.
I've talked about it on Twitter, and that got shared on Reddit. I made a video on it, on 2K21 and 2K22, just complete rush jobs, copy paste jobs, spreadsheet copy paste, etc. They need somebody to work on those rosters that will give the players and teams the time and attention that they deserve. Somebody who's like a subject matter expert who, has the time to really dive into those rosters and really, make those players and teams accurate. And, somebody who also can understand the gameplay to a point where they know how to set those players up for success on the floor. So they play like their real life counterpart. There's people in the community that will do it for free. That's the funny part. There's some great roster makers out there that would just absolutely die for a 2K to call them and say, hey, do you want to help us with this game? We can include you in the credits of the game and whatnot. So I think that's one of the depth cons, and it's been a con for years. I posted screenshots and gameplay and whatnot from NBA 2K16, where a lot of the same copy paste stuff that's been in the game for the last few years was in that game. So they're just like bringing those issues over from year to year. And that's not good.
I mean, this goes back to 2K9, 2K10 even. I've talked to you before about, and I think I mentioned on the podcast as well, working on a small update for 2K10, adding some missing legends. And going through the legends that are already there in the all-decade teams and seeing how many ratings are just identical across the board, how many attributes are identical, how many tendencies are just missing. They haven't bothered to enter them into the database. And this is as of the final roster update. So they had a chance during the year to address the historical plays as well, and they didn't. 2K9 with the living rosters definitely came up short as well. Look at all the 99 overalls for whatever reason in NBA 2K9. So it's definitely that is a weakness. We've talked about the strengths of 2K throughout the years. The weakness is the rosters have never really been as strong as they should be. And my NBA eras,
there are people out there that will do it, Andrew. That's the thing. They'll do it for free or for very little pay, and they are subject matter experts. They love the history of basketball. They know the way that these players play, and I don't want to hear that 2K doesn't have a budget,
of course,
to bring somebody on or a team of people on to work on these rosters to make them accurate. I think it's also, and I've talked about this on prior shows, I think it's also disrespectful to the history of the game, to those players, and even to the families, to some of these players who have passed and whatnot. I know people may think that's ridiculous, but we're talking about, this is a way of preserving those players' legacies.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. So there's definitely a huge big picture aspect of it. But yeah, I'll let you continue, but that's like a big piece of this is the fact that there are people that will do it, and they'll do it for cheap.
Exactly, and the fact that it has been going on for so long, this is an area they really need to get those details right. And I mean, they have fixed up a lot of those issues. The Horace Grant face that was there at launch was bad, ridiculously bad. The fact that Terrell Brandon was 5'1" instead of 5'11", just a bit of sloppiness there that was a bit disappointing in what is otherwise a very detailed mode. And as I've said in previous shows, because of the depth of My NBA eras and what it's trying to achieve, getting that attention to detail is so important. That accuracy is so important. Yeah, I mean, I've worked on rosters before. You've worked on rosters. You know how easy it is to overlook a rating here or there and have to go back and fix it up. That's what updates are for. But some of those errors were just
importing next. Yeah, but they're just importing, exporting DNA for guys like Michael Williams and making him like a best player on the Detroit Pistons
because they haven't adjusted
in the late '80s. Yeah, right. Because they just threw him on there.
He's from the all-time. So he's all-time version. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason why they can't have somebody to make Michael Williams and the other players right and more accurate and whatnot. There isn't a reason why somebody has there shouldn't be somebody rushing Michael Williams onto the Detroit Pistons.
No, it's cutting corners really, and the fact that team is already in the game as well. He should just be able to copy the ratings across and that. Lesser version of Michael Williams. But yeah, you can't cut corners on that. The whole point is the accuracy and the depth of it. So that is disappointing. It has been an issue in 2K for years now. Rosters are not as strong as they should be. I know we all think, going right back to the NBA Live days, I talked to Rod Redkop about it, and he mentioned how everyone was always waiting for Tim's rosters or Lutz's rosters to come through. And we all have our ideas of ratings sometimes and disagree with the official updates. But there's quibbles over an overall rating or some of the individual ratings. Maybe this should be a bit higher, a bit lower. And then there's just flat-out inaccuracies and rushed copy and paste jobs. And we're seeing too much of the latter in those rosters.
Yeah, also a reminder that when these inaccuracies are there, that it impacts the gameplay dramatically. So this isn't just like a cosmetic thing. This isn't just I'm upset that Michael Williams isn't made right, or I'm upset that Daryl Dawkins is way underdone, all of that stuff. Like, you actually put these players out on the floor and they don't move like their real life counterpart. They're not capable of doing the things that they did in real life, and it throws everything off. It makes it not as fun.
The tendencies, yeah, absolutely.
Result. Right. So tendencies, signatures, all of that stuff, badge assignments, all of that. So, something as simple as somebody in real life like Daryl Dawkins had a sweet mid-range jump shot, which I've actually posted that on Twitter before, highlights of it, of him just smoking mid-range shots, where he got up on his shot and he had a high release. And then NBA 2K, they just give him that same ridiculous set shot animation every single year. And you can't even shoot mid-range with Daryl Dawkins in NBA 2K23. So it takes an aspect of his game that he really had completely out of the equation, so you can't use him realistically. And it impacts the way you use that team, or if you use him in my team, etc. That's the other thing that people got to understand. It's not just impacting my NBA eras, or if it's a regular player that's in a roster and whatnot play now. It's also impacting like my team.
Yeah, playing with and against those players. Against them as well. They're not doing,
especially signatures, right? Yeah. Right, because there can be boosted ratings and whatnot for players, but signatures stay. So the signatures are going to be like Daryl Dawkins' signature in my team is going to be what it is in the roster.
Exactly. Yeah.
And whatnot. You can't change it. So continuing forward really quick, my team limitations, free agent cards, you and I are both not a fan of them. You can't sell them. You can't put them on the auction house and whatnot. There's 5 contracts for each of them. You should be allowed to, sell those. And
for more than one MT, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Right.
You can put them on the exchange, which is nice, but to that point, the exchanges, and this has been an issue since the exchange came in, it's not great value, really. The amount that you have to trade in to actually get something, which may be a pack, which has the horrible pack odds that so you trade a lot to get very little. And it's,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Under the radar, it's something that people don't talk about enough is your VC rewards for playing regular games is almost nothing. And it doesn't help you out at all as far as being able to buy packs, taking it into the online seed and everything. My brother and I have played, I think, 43 games, 12-minute quarters of our My NBA Legends season, and we've accrued almost nothing for VC. The VC rewards are ridiculous. You should be rewarded for spending that much time on the game if they're going to put a price on so many online aspects of it, right? Or like how expensive it is to buy packs in my team. So VC rewards is a huge con.
And MT2 in my team.
Those payouts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, you play, a my team game, and you get maybe 500 or 600 points, or up to 700 my team points for that game, and that doesn't really get you anywhere.
No.
So yeah, and you could be hitting goals too, and it's ridiculous. My career and the price of everything. I know this is something you hold near and dear as a complaint. The cost to upgrade your player so he can be competitive, the cost of items in the store, the gambling mechanics in the game in general. The costs have turned into something outrageous. You can spend $100 on the Jordan edition of the game and use all of that money that you accrued from spending, that additional money on the game, which is a lot. And you can only get your guy up to like roughly 80 overall, even if you use all of it to upgrade your player, and then you're still not able to be competitive enough against all the meta builds and whatnot and all the badged out, ridiculously high overall players that are online. So you get smoked. So it's not fun, and then there's not proper matchmaking. So I'm going to let you talk about this for a second, because I know you're closer to that action because you're into the online scene. So this is definitely a con.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people always excuse it. Oh, it's just the way of gaming these days. And now it's gotten really toxic that you're calling people broke if they're no money spent, or if they don't want to put in money into the mode, which is just really just playing into corporate greed. I just have no regard for that. If you're doing that, you are shilling for a company. Just want to put that out there again. So the cost of upgrading in my career, and I want to refer back here to the W, that shows that if you start off around about 75 overall with decent physical attributes, decent athletic ratings, and you just need to upgrade some of your key skills, then that's still a fun journey, and it is still viable to play. It's fun online. Kenny and I had a game where we jumped online and played the W online, and I just created a player 5 minutes before we did that, and that player was already viable enough to have some fun. Now, was she absolutely maxed out in OP? No, but she was playable online. Compare that to my player, and the amount of grinding I've had to do to get badges, and even spending that pre-order VC to get to about 77, 78 overall, so not even 80 anymore, was just ridiculous. There is no need to have such a lengthy grind to be part of the journey. If it was a fun journey, people wouldn't pay to skip it, but they do. And this is why the whole, as I've said before, the whole it's optional argument just falls apart, because it really
because it's paying to have fun. It's paying to have fun.
Exactly.
Or going through multiple months of grinding your player, spending just ungodly amount of time on the game, which you probably don't have, in order to get your player to a point where you're having fun.
Yeah.
So that's either you pay right away and you pay in to have fun, early on when the game is first released, or you spend multiple months not having fun.
Turn it into a job. Yeah. I saw the argument. I saw the argument again on Reddit. Somebody posted it in the thread that was talking about these issues and said, "Oh, everyone wants to be 99 the first week." No. People are willing to put in the grind, as much of a hassle as it can be. They're willing to take the journey, but the point is that journey isn't fun. I've done that journey in 2K14 during my first couple of years in my career playing 2K14, going from a 60 overall up to the maxed out 97 as it was at the time for some builds. That was a fun journey. And it has continued to be a fun journey beyond that after maxing out. But it was a fun journey to be that lower rated player. It is not fun in the newer games. If you are playing online, you are not competitive at the start. You need to work to have fun. This is a game. It is not a job. And if you do want to have that journey, make it fun. But the fact people are willing to pay to skip it, can you imagine, Derek, going to a film, going to the movies, watching a film that was a total bore for the first hour or so, but if you paid extra, they would cut it down to the best part of the movie so it was entertaining. You'd think that was a terrible movie, wouldn't you?
Right, exactly. Yeah. And I think that the thing is that your player, and I've seen so many people talk about it, people have shown footage about it and everything. If you just buy the base game and you don't put the extra money in, the way your player comes out when you hit the hardwood is he is slow, he is sluggish, he can't really put dribbles together properly, he can't finish inside, his shot sucks, all of that stuff. And you're just like, man, this sucks. And like, I want to compete. This is the only basketball simulation out there. I want to, have fun with my player. So what do? You
pay or
pony
grind.
up the money.
Yeah, that's right.
You pony up the money. So, and I did want to bring this up because I posted it on October 23rd, and it's from an article, and it stated that Take-Two generated $548 million in recurrent consumer spending in the last 3 months of 2021, more than it made from the sale of the full games. So that's why they do it. You know what I mean? Like, it says, if they're generating more money from the recurrent revenue from those gambling mechanics and whatnot, if they're making more money than the actual game's sales, then, I mean, the suit's got to be happy, right?
They are. It's
all that money
it's going
hitting
into their
the bottom
pockets
line.
too. I want to point that out because it's been pointed out. Jim Sterling in their videos have pointed out a lot as well, other people too, that this isn't going back to the developers. It's not going towards better servers or making the game better. It is going into the pockets of the suits. So that's what this current revenue is for. It's not that. I also want to point out the lack of matchmaking, as you alluded to, which also drives those recurrent revenue mechanics by forcing people to get better because of the lack of matchmaking. After a month or so, when there are people with OP builds, when you have that matchmaking, that lack of matchmaking, it just makes it so toxic for people who haven't been on the grind or paying, and or newcomers to the game. The reset every season, they reset your record in Pro-Am every season, which sounds good on paper, but then also resets any semblance of matchmaking, what little matchmaking there is in that mode. Again, it just pushes people towards spending. There's so much toxicity, a lot of full squads going to the rec that are supposed to be for random players. Nobody is friendly in the rec. The whole grinding aspect of the mode forces you to be selfish and go for your own stats, which just completely makes the random matchmaking, random teaming up modes, I should say, even more toxic than they already were, and that just keeps getting worse and worse. The scene is just terrible. I know there are people who are enjoying it. If you've got some friends to play with, as I do, it's a bit more enjoyable, but again, the lack of matchmaking, and after a month or so, when people have figured out all the meta builds and how to break the game, if you haven't got that, and if you're not willing to redo your player and spend the money to do that, to get them up to speed again, to get that meta build and then use that online instead, then you're stuck. The low VC payouts, the story is horrible. It's just ridiculous. The fact that the story is so intrusive now, you can't skip it because it's tied into quests and the whole open world of the city in next gen. It's better on current gen, actually, funnily enough. It's still there, but it's better because it's not as intrusive. But the fact that you can't skip the story as you could as of 2K19 in the next couple of games, and that you have to play through it, and that it is so tied into the city, and the pushiness of the recurrent revenue mechanics that's, as you said, it's all part of that. Yeah, it is the worst my career mode to date. That's how I'll sum it up.
So the article that I grabbed those figures from, just to, also be transparent there, it's from Axios. The title was Take-Two CEO's Big Microtransaction Bonus, and it was by Stephen Totillo, and he's the author of Axios Gaming. And I just want to, before we close this the microtransaction portion, I want people to remember that the target audience is teenagers. Right. The target gaming population is teenagers and super young adults, but mostly teenagers. So that's it's where we're digging into teenagers' pockets here. In a sense, also their parents' pockets.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's, something that I know that you hold dear. Yeah, it's gross. So the next piece is creative player needs an overhaul, the ability to better shape players' heads. For example, look at games like WWE 2K and AO International Tennis. Both of those have absolutely amazing creative player customization ability, where you can make the players look like their real life counterparts. If you're trying to make a classic player who's not in the game or whatnot, or trying to fill out a draft class and whatnot, I think the players in NBA 2K23 look super created using in that in-game create a player feature. They all have the same looking eyes for the most part. They don't look as good in game as they do in the create a player screen. I think that there needs to be more attention to detail related to head styles, head shaping, just being able to morph the face better and whatnot. And I think you noticed that as well.
Absolutely. Before we get too far away from it, I do want to mention a couple other things with my team. The broken economy thanks to the MT sales. And I know this is something that happens off-site and not under 2K's jurisdiction, but the fact that they haven't addressed that, the fact that you've got people spending millions of MT in the auction house, which they've bought, compared to people who are just doing it legit and getting very little MT, is just completely ruined that economy. You've got a 10% sales fee, a transaction fee, that is absolutely useless. It's supposedly meant to somehow balance the economy. That's the argument that I've heard, but it just makes things worse, especially for people who are doing it the right way, doing the right thing all above board. And so that's a bit disappointing there. And the other thing that also applies to My NBA Eras as well is how segmented some of the content is. You recall how we were able to play with My NBA Eras rosters very briefly due to a glitch that they very quickly patched, while taking their time to fix other VC issues, mind you. The fact that those rosters can only be played in My NBA Eras, and I know people say, well, that's the point. And I say, yes, I get that. I disagree with it. I think it'd be great to at least be able to play exhibition games with that, as we could very briefly when that debug function was accidentally made available. There's a lot of players that are only available there or only available in my team. And again, I know people will say that is the point, and I say I disagree with that approach. I disagree with them doing it that way. I think that there's so much content, as much as depth as there is, some of it's still segmented, and I'd love to have that available more freely and across the board.
Yeah, you got people pumped up when you showed the bug. You made that YouTube video showing that, you were able to use My NBA Eras rosters in Play Now.
Spent hours on it, and then within hours they patched it out. Yeah.
Yeah, it was too bad.
Little sore about that. Little sore.
Yeah. So let's move on to the graphics here. So graphics pros, this is going to be a much shorter segment, and then we'll get to gameplay. Graphics pros, great lighting this year. It is the best of the next gen 2Ks. I think the game just looks absolutely awesome, whether you're using the regular teams or the classic teams. Do I think it looks as good as NBA 2K14? Lighting wise, reflections wise, jersey movement wise, and whatnot? No, I don't think, and I think you would agree. But at the same time, I've never been like a super graphics snob, and I think that the game definitely can shine, and I think it looks, it's good enough for me. Let's put it that way. I think it can shine. When something looks good, it looks really good when it happens on the floor and whatnot.
You're not calling this PS2 graphics. No one's calling this PS2 graphics. And being taken,
people say stuff like that.
I do too. Yeah, yes. Even for NBA Live, the past generation, it's not. Compare it side by side. It's hyperbole does not work here.
Yeah. But it is absolutely fair to say that a PS4 game can look better than a PS5 game. I just want to point that out because this isn't a big jump, and it sometimes feels like not a jump at all in many aspects from PS4 to PS5. I think that there's a lot of aspects of the graphics on NBA 2K14 that look better than PS5 NBA 2K23.
We can see regression within the same generation. Absolutely. Referring to the WWE games, there's a very infamous Booker T screenshot going around that shows how he pretty much looks like a creator wrestler compared to faces that he had a couple of years earlier. It was really bad. So it can happen on the same generation. And again, we've seen some of the faces in 2K as well, and they've been replaced by better ones. But yeah,
but there's a huge difference between that. There's a huge difference between that and saying, listen, WCW versus NWO World Tour for N64 looks better than WWE 2K23. Like, no.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Not in any way, shape, or form.
Those blocky figures, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It holds. It is fun. Yeah, it is fun.
It's my favorite one of all time. Cyberface improvements across the board. Razor has been posting a ton that he's done on Twitter. He has done incredible work on creating super realistic cyber faces for the My NBA Eras rosters and, for the classic players in general. So I want to give a shout out to Razor. He's done a great job. There were many new cyber faces added. Many cyber faces were improved. And I think that his name is Scott Rochelle, who works for the Retired Players Association. I also want to give him a shout out because I don't think that, from everything I'm gathering, this My NBA Era stuff, this outreach to get all of these new players in the game and everything, and to kind of get that ball rolling, probably wouldn't have happened without him.
Yes.
So I wanted to give him a shout out. You can follow him on Twitter. He posts quite a bit, actually. I also like the instant replay photo filter. I think you would agree. It's a really nice touch. People have been able to use it for thumbnails on YouTube. It can really, really show like breathtaking photorealistic footage of something that's happened on the court, whether you're like, and of course it's only for still shots, right?
Yeah.
But like if I fly in with Michael Jordan and I'm about to posterize Patrick Ewing, I can capture that moment with that photo filter. And sometimes it looks very, very close to real life. It just looks absolutely amazing. I haven't used it as much lately, but I was using it quite a bit when I first got the game.
And of course, the era presentation is just incredible. I will say that I've noticed a few more people playing with it off, because some of the that more pixelated, that lower res effect, while impressive, is not always as fun to play on in those earlier eras. And I found myself turning it off, if only to capture better highlights. But it is great that it's in the game, and it is so authentic, that the presentation as well.
Yeah, 100%. Graphics cons. Players still often lack the muscle they have in real life, giving the players, my brothers and I call it the Gumby effect.
I was going to say,
yeah, where the players just kind of, they don't look like human beings and whatnot. There's been a lot better body models in past 2Ks, like on PS4 gen and whatnot, where the players actually look like athletes and you could see that muscle. Jerseys look like they're stuck to the players. 2K14 and a couple other 2Ks from the PS4 gen, and actually several from the PS3 gen, had better and more realistic jersey movement. And the jersey textures on 2K23 next gen pale in comparison to several of the past 2K titles like NBA 2K14. You share a lot of footage of NBA 2K14 of, whether it be like just from the gameplay standpoint, from the broadcast view, or from the 2K view when you're playing My Career. And also gameplay, in that gameplay is the close-ups, like the highlights, the instant replays and whatnot. And that jersey movement and those jersey textures are the best in the series. It looks unbelievably awesome. And it's not even close to as good in NBA 2K23.
And that is surprising. The whole thing is it's next gen, right? And, next gen is more than sweat effects.
Yeah, I know that's a good way to show off the game though during preview season, right?
Sure is, yeah. Sweaty players, yeah.
Right. So before I get into like the gameplay pros and cons, did you have anything to add from a depth or graphics perspective?
No, I think I've covered pretty much everything. I think we're pretty much in agreement as well with what you brought up.
Perfect. So gameplay pros. The AI ability has improved on both offense and defense over 2K21 and 2K22. Players play more like their real-life counterparts. I used the example of Chris Paul on the last episode, on the last episode of the podcast. When you play against Chris Paul, not only are his signatures awesome, like the way they have his shooting motion, it looks exactly like Chris Paul. But you got a game plan for Chris Paul because he's going to play like he does in real life. He's going to be shooting from the shots that he shoots from, when he's playing in real games. He's going to attack the basket the same way. He's going to be a good floor general, etc. So I think that the AI ability is the best it's been on next gen.
I've noticed that as well. No, it's very strong on the sticks and the and having those opponents play as they do in real life, as you said. When the ratings and tendencies are accurate, obviously that certainly helps. But also the aggressiveness as well. You go back to older games, you and I've been playing for years, obviously, and there are some games where the CPU is just not aggressive enough. And once you just start putting the screws to them, you can just blow them out very easily, even on higher difficulty levels. Whereas the AI will bring it in 2K23, and it's that aggressiveness is important.
Right, unless you close out on them effectively, and then they'll just miss every shot. But we'll get into that in the cons. Yeah. So breaking your man down on the perimeter feels more rewarding. There's not as many easy blow-bys in NBA 2K23 as there was in 2K22. Stringing together dribbles is very rewarding. You have to work for it more in that game, by finding and utilizing angles, putting together the right combinations with the right stick, effectively putting together a realistic crossover, etc. It just feels more like real life basketball when it comes to breaking your man down on the perimeter. Post game has improved slightly over 2K21 and 2K22 because there's a little bit less suction. I love the fact that you can dominate with bigger players who should be dominant. So if you have a mismatch, and let's say I am using like Magic Johnson and I have Isaiah Thomas on me, like I'm playing like a classic season or something like that, the ability to dominate Isaiah Thomas down low with 6'9" Magic Johnson feels right, and it feels good in that game. If there's a mismatch where I'm using Shaq and a guard or a small forward comes out on me, or I just have a strength advantage over the center they have in at that time, I can back him way down into the paint right under the basket, and I can stuff it in his face. Right. So I like those touches, and I do find some enjoyment in the post game this year.
How do you feel about the adrenaline boosts? Because the latest patch has made an interesting change, and I think a good one, that it no longer drains a boost when you're moving off ball. It's only when you're making the dribbling moves, and I think that's vital as well. I think they made a good move.
I've never even noticed it. I got to be honest with you. There was a bunch of people worried about it on release, and they were thinking that it was going to super limit them, moving off the ball or like stringing together dribbles and whatnot. My brother and I haven't even noticed the adrenaline stuff.
I think that's the mark of a great feature, I think, when it just kind of works in the background.
Right, it blends in.
Yeah.
Right, it blends into the overall gameplay experience, right? So that hasn't hurt us at all. I don't care if they keep it, if they remove it or anything like that. It's just been fine. Stealing and blocking system is overall rewarding and fun at times. Poke steals, snatch blocks, etc. I think that part of putting the fun back in to the NBA 2K series, like Mike Wong alluded to in one of the gameplay blogs, was bringing back fun defensive mechanics. You've talked about it on past podcasts. One of the biggest weaknesses on defense, and since they switched over to the new motion system in 2K18, was the feeling of you push the steal button to foul. It was like push the button and you'll foul, no matter what. So it discouraged you from ever wanting to try to go for a steal and whatnot. But with the way stealing works now in NBA 2K in the series, specifically in NBA 2K23, you can get those rewarding poke steals like you did back in like NBA Live 2005. You can jump the passing lanes realistically. You can double the big man in the post and, off ball and just quickly, snatch the ball out of its hands and run down the other way. I think overall that defense is fun, intuitive, and it's rewarding.
I still feel like there's a bit of press steal to foul there.
Not as much.
Yeah, it has been toned down. The downside is, of course, not to get into the cons too early, but the downside online is that a lot of people have found that they can just spam it and just run at you and spam it with a high steal rating and swipe it way too easily.
Right, but I think that's more related to badges. And I think it's more related to the ratings not working the way they should. As opposed to the mechanic itself being broken. That's right. Fair, I think it's online balance, right?
That is true. But no, being able to play defense is so important. As we've said before, a staple of all bad games is the inability to defend. Basically turning it into a shootout, and whoever misses the most loses. And, I mean, that kind of makes sense. That is an aspect of basketball, that if you make more shots than your opponent, you are going to win. To state the obvious analysis of basketball. But it is the only way of playing defense is to hope they miss. And that's the staple of all bad games, and 2K23 absolutely avoids that. So yeah, that's good, obviously.
Agreed. Getting the board and running is incredibly rewarding and fun. and they also removed the dribble hesitation glitch that was in NBA 2K22. I hardly ever see it anymore. It's the one that would happen where you would start trying to run up the court and the game would force you to slow down and do a hesitation for no reason, which allowed the defense to catch up. There's also less suction when you're going up for a layup on the fast break, where you're not being dragged backwards into the defender. And I think that fast breaks are a lot more rewarding this year. The outlet passing is snappy. The passing is reactive, so give and goes work great. The alley-oop meter has been fixed overall. It's a lot more forgiving and rewarding, and it makes sense. It feels more like a real event as opposed to a quick time event. So getting the board, rebounding's always been a great thing in NBA 2K. Let's be honest. It's always been good. Those mechanics have always been there and strong. Fast breaks are so fun in NBA 2K23.
I appreciate any rebounding system where I can actually jump and get the ball and not just have to run over it.
Yeah, exactly. NBA Live 2002, anybody?
Yeah, just putting that out there. Yeah, I'm not as big a fan of the alley-oop meter as you and your brother are. I'm still a bit, not even lukewarm towards it, still a bit cold towards it, to be completely honest. But I do see how it has been improved, and it's just something I need to get better at.
Yeah, it's great for co-op.
Yeah.
The way it works this year, it's great for co-op because it makes the other person truly feel part of the play. And like I said, it just works a lot better this year. They've done a great job in fine-tuning it and making it so there wasn't this super long, ungodly amount of time that you'd have to hold down the button and you have to release it at the exact same time to, complete the dunk. I think it just works really well. The right joystick control on dunks overall makes sense, and you can finish in so many ways at the hoop, whether you're trying to finish on the right side of the rim, left side of the rim, do a reverse layup and whatnot. Like, I think the right stick control overall on dunks feels very similar to like NBA 2K17, so I enjoy that. Quick plays work amazing. Players move to their spots fast and with a purpose. Examples include, like, if you run cut to basket and the paint is open, you can throw alley-oops off of that or find your cutter pretty easily. Passing is snappy, so you can get in the ball. The receive screen play is absolutely amazing to send somebody to the corner to get a wide open three, or like just to have them run off a screen in general to come to the ball. They'll get a wide open shot. Very important to get wide open shots in NBA 2K23 because contested shots will hardly ever go in. So play calling is a very, very, very strong feature of NBA 2K23.
You mentioned the controls there. One of my pet peeves, about a generation ago, I'd say, a couple of generations probably, is the constant changing to the controls. And I know they had to find their way, they had to find what worked, but now I think they've arrived at a configuration, a format, a style that does work very well. Moving forward, I like to see them make very minimal changes to dribbling. I do like the feel of dribbling. If the only real pet peeve I have with it now is that I prefer hitting down or back on the right stick to perform behind the back, whereas now it's a more contrived move and using sprint plus back or away to do a step back. I like that a little bit better than the current system. That would be the only change I would recommend or advocate for, or certainly having a couple of options there maybe to be able to switch between a couple of different dribbling control configurations would be nice, kind of like camera relative and absolute control if there were a couple of options there. But apart from that, I really like the feel of the controls and the way, the approach, the configuration of the controls, and the fact that they've been so consistent with it is also a huge plus.
Yeah, I have a couple cons related to the dribbling, but overall dribbling feels good this year. Momentum dribbles was a nice touch. It's a nice option to have. I actually show a highlight in my most recent My Team game where I use a momentum dribble with Kobe to get by my first man, and then I cross over on the next man, and then I finish with a layup in traffic, and I get a basket and foul. And overall, it felt really good. So that's definitely a nice option and a nice touch. Passing is another pro. It's reactive and snappy, less floaty passes, less passes transferring to the opponent. And then lastly, for pros gameplay-wise, this game produces some of the best highlights in the 2K series. The dunks are loud. The fancy passes look great. The blocks can be dominating. Being able to grab a steal, like I had stated, like a poke steal, get out on the break and do some fantastic dunk, a loud dunk, maybe an alley-oop, throw it behind you to your teammate who's trailing the play, and he'll finish with an awesome alley-oop. Like, overall, this game produces some of the best highlights ever in the 2K series or basketball video games in general.
The lobs off the board, the contact dunks, so well done. Yeah, no, I love seeing the highlights that the community shares, and of course creating them myself when I play the game. It's very satisfying again, and that's going to go back to what I said earlier in the show, that those little moments, I mean, yes, it's important the game feels great moment to moment, but then when something big happens, when a highlight happens, that it looks spectacular, that it feels satisfying, that it almost brings you out of your seat, as I said. That's what games need to be, and 2K23 does achieve that.
100%, I agree. And again, it makes people want to upload content, right? It makes you and I want to show off the game and maybe upload a video to Twitter or to YouTube and whatnot. And the company should want that. And maybe that's why they made the highlights better this year, because they know that people are going to want to show those off. It shows off the game, and therefore people are going to buy the game and whatnot, or put more money into it. Now we're going to get to the gameplay cons. Removing the ability to just flick the joystick to initiate a size up that you can break out of, I think, was a mistake. I think that it was so fluid to have like one of the players' real size ups, like their signature size up there, or one that you assign to a player. And, removing that from the game took away some of the authenticity. And I think it was Diabetes 2K that pointed this out. Sure, you can string together dribbles to, basically put together the size up for a specific player, but it's definitely a lot clunkier times when you're doing it that way. So I wish that they had kept in the ability to flick the joystick to initiate like a full-blown size up, but then also keep the other dribbling enhancements that they've made in the game.
No, I'd agree with that. Those are the small adjustments I'd like to see them make moving forward. I don't think we need to see any overhauls to the controls and the basic schemes, but just little quality of life improvements like that. And I mean, it comes down to what the community prefers, because sometimes our opinions are in the minority, just to put it out there. But yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that those small changes will just really tighten up controls here and there.
Right, which is funny, and I'll admit this fully. I have not seen one person other than Diabetes 2K mention that they missed having the traditional size ups in there. So, like, I know that I'm in the minority. Skating, sliding. 2K23 is still suffering from issues that were caused by the new motion system that was implemented in 2K18. The players are often skating or even floating above the court. This impacts control. It impacts outcomes. It can absolutely, alter enjoyment in the game. It can cause frustration. This is a very big con. It's the biggest reason why NBA 2K23 doesn't stack up to so many games, in my opinion, in the old motion system, the 2K16s, the 2K17s, 15, 2K14, and whatnot, because player movement is such a big part of basketball. It's a huge aspect of gameplay related to basketball video gaming. It's just so vital. It's something that skating impacts your ability to change directions, to be able to stop on a dime, to put yourself in a proper defensive position and whatnot, and just so much more. So the skating and sliding that was introduced with 2K18 and is still in NBA 2K23 is still my biggest complaint. And I think it's really made it so, from a gameplay perspective, I just can't get the same amount of enjoyment out of this game as I do like 2K17, 2K16, and whatnot.
It's legacy issues like that in general, and some of the psychic steals by the CPU that are still there to a certain extent. For me, as I said, I'm still not the biggest fan of the alley-oop meter. There is still some of that press steal to foul. It is better, as you said. Kind of those legacy issues that haven't totally been cleaned up. But again, for me, it's a case of clean that up, and it just makes such a big jump from a gameplay standpoint. For me, it's a lot of, from what I've seen from playing online, is there's still a lot of balance with the consumables and augmentations like badges, for example, and so forth, and the boosts that you can buy, and the busy work you can do as far as the doing the Gatorade workout every week to get the extra boosts and so forth, that if you don't completely buy into the meta and everything and equip the right badges and so forth, it becomes very unbalanced. That is fortunately not an issue with NBA gameplay. So that's the nice thing there. If you are sticking with that, you avoid that hornet's nest altogether. And I would honestly recommend that, having played my career for here and there over the past few months. But that is an issue with online gameplay, that the balance isn't there, and that would be my biggest critique, apart from what you've brought up.
Yeah, and what do I stay away from, Andrew?
Yeah, good decision. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Another gameplay con that's hurt the series since 2K18 is the suction. I still feel like there's a lot of this in 2K23, especially in the mid-range and in the post, where you're consistently being sucked into two-man canned animations. This has hurt the mid-range and post games the most. And I think that's pretty obvious by the gameplay footage that you see uploaded by other users in the community, and even some of my gameplay footage and whatnot. You don't have a lot of great mid-range highlights. As a result, I just feel like there's still a lot of suction and a lot of two-man canned animations, and it hurts the gameplay the most inside the three-point line.
For comparison, you saw my 2K14 Retro Series video, the 60s 65 Celtics versus 65 Lakers. You
had some great highlights in there.
Yeah,
some great highlights in there.
Thank you. No, when I created that space and hit that jumper with a couple of players, with Sanders, with Siegfried, you could get those mid-range highlights, as you say.
Right, but you feel like you could, get Bill Russell on the elbow, or, get John Havlicek on the elbow and face up your guy and make a great move to the hoop and not be sucked into like a ridiculous two-man canned animation that just completely breaks the play.
Absolutely.
Right?
You can see that in that.
And you can see that, right.
Yeah.
And that was another strong thing about 2K16 and 2K17. It didn't have that suction issue in the mid-range or the post. There's another con, inability to hit contested shots, both from the CPU and also you as the user. I think that the green or bust mechanics still feel like they're basically take center stage in this game. I think that it really does hurt shooting. I think that it's kind of crazy that anytime you're in the computer's space, even when you're playing on Hall of Fame, that they're just going to miss almost 100% of the time if you put your hands up, no matter who the shooter is and whatnot. And then, from a user perspective, anytime you're closed out on a shot, you feel like there's like a 1% chance you're going to hit that shot.
Even with a great
shooter, that's the way that it should be. You're right. Even if you time the shot right. Like, even if you feel like you timed it right and whatnot. So I think that inability to hit contested shots has definitely been a major issue, especially since the, new motion system in 2K18, which they've, kind of just been upgrading over the years since and whatnot. This has been kind of a big issue in the game.
It is. It's another one of those things I like to see cleaned up. And it's going to be tough because there's so many conflicting schools of thought in it. There's the whole mythological skill gap that they're going for, and that gamers are always touting that they need this skill gap, which is very hard to implement in a game that has so many canned animations. I don't think people really realize that these semblances of skill gap are often overwritten by those canned moments, and of course the augmentations of badges.
Oh yeah, I mean that's another con from the gameplay perspective. Way too many badges, right? That are way overpowering, and they take away true skill gap. However, the last major gameplay con, and I think you've noticed this as well, and we talked about it on a prior show, the shooting. There's no normal release option. Mike Wong came out and said that they implemented early, very early, late, and very late shooting options early in the cycle, and that's what they worked on. And then they started to work on the normal release option last, and they weren't able to implement it in time for the game's release. So you have a basketball video game where shooting is integral. How many shots go up every basketball game?
Between teams?
Virtual hardwood or in real life.
Absolutely.
Between both. I mean, 70 to 83s.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, exactly, every single game. So shooting is a huge part of basketball. Yeah. And that should be something that should be worked on early and should be flushed out. Like any issues with it should be flushed out, and it should be functional and ready to go at release. And it wasn't. So you're stuck with that's not good.
No, that's an issue with 2K as well, that they bring in some ideas and they want to pack so much in, and I love that about 2K, and that's very admirable. But the downside is that sometimes you get overambitious with feature creep, and you do something like that, and then you run out of time to properly implement it, and you've got this kind of half-implemented, not quite ready system. Happened with 2K18, and you know, our listeners will know how we feel about 2K18, and not that system, that tech, or that feature is not quite ready yet, and then the game suffers for it.
Yeah, outside of protected shots, NBA 2K17 I think is the best shooting they've ever had in the series.
I agree.
The way the shots feel, the way the animations play out, and whatnot. But I still thought that NBA 2K21 and NBA 2K22 had stronger shooting mechanics over NBA 2K23. So I think they regressed in that area, and I think one of the reasons could be because there was no normal timing, normal release option that was released, with the game.
I'll admit that I haven't really loved shooting since probably 2K19, 2K20.
I couldn't stand the shooting in 2K19 because it feels so rushed.
Right.
Like the shots the animations are so rushed. I haven't truly enjoyed shooting since 2K17.
Since 2K17,
probably.
Yeah,
fair. I mean, 2K21 and 2K22 next gen, it didn't feel too bad. But 2K17 is just...
I wasn't a fan, so we do differ.
That's a really high bar, 2K17. It was really good.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, so because of the gameplay issues that I mentioned, and they're so impactful, things like skating, sliding, that's player movement, right? Suction, that impacts like the gameplay in such a big way inside the 3-point line and with closeouts and whatnot. The inability to hit contested shots, like that really small window, and then like that shooting issue, those are all huge aspects of basketball. So because of the gameplay issues that I mentioned and how so many of them, impact control, we're talking about rankings and where this stands all time in the series. I can't rank this game above many of the PS4 2Ks, before they switched over to next gen. So like, I don't rank this game from a gameplay perspective above NBA 2K14, 15, 16, or 17. I can't rank it above those. I do rank it higher than 2K18, 2K20, 2K21, and 2K22. So not the worst game in the series, but it's not the best. Some of the PS3 Gen 2Ks can actually be more fun than NBA 2K23. Why? Because the foot planning's a lot better. There is less suction in those games. Like if I go back and play NBA 2K13, oftentimes I can have more enjoyment playing that game because it doesn't have those suction issues. It doesn't have those skating issues and whatnot. The shooting feels better in that game. Those are major aspects of basketball, Andrew. They're very important. They're happening all the time on the floor. So I'll say I'll rank it this way. It's the best next-gen 2K yet. Like it's better than 2K21, better than 2K22. And it's better than a few of the PS4 2Ks, but it doesn't beat, say, NBA 2K13, 2K14, 2K15, 16, or 17 in my eyes from a gameplay perspective. Depth-wise, it does. Depth, it's the best in sports gaming history,
I'd agree,
in my opinion. Yeah. But gameplay is so important. It's so vital. It's why we play, right? For that on-court action. And it's not the best in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people say it's the best, and I respect that opinion. Personally, for my enjoyment and evaluating all of the pros and cons that we've been discussing, I'm in a similar boat. I was trying to think, what would I rank ahead of it? Where would I rank it, like in a top 5 or top 10 or whatever? I think potentially when you look at some of the positives of the gameplay, the depth, etc., it has an argument to be top 5, top 10 at the least. But when you start to look at some of those cons, it does bring it down a little bit. I could start naming games that I would rank ahead of it as far as enjoyment and overall quality, if not depth, obviously. And it comes down to titles that you mentioned, 2K14, 15, 16, 17, 2K11, 12, and 13 are very strong releases as well and hold up very well. I also saw another Reddit comment, or it might have been on Twitter, stop living in nostalgia, stop just being nostalgic. It's not just nostalgia. Those games hold up. They were quality releases. You also have to factor in the lack of goodwill, the microtransactions, how pushy they are, because that does impact the experience. And with all that being said, I would say it's easily the best on the current generation, or next gen, whatever you want to say, the PS5, Xbox Series X. It impressed me far more than 2K21 and 2K22 did, and has been so much more fun to play. It is easily the best of that generation, and it is also setting up the future quite positively as well, which I really feel good about. As far as all time, I mean, I would say that there's an argument for it to be somewhere in the top 10, maybe in the lower 5, because of the drawbacks, the cons with the gameplay and some of the modes. And look, I just can't overlook. People want to overlook pushiness of microtransactions and all of that stuff. It's part of the experience. It's integral to the experience, how that affects the gameplay and your overall enjoyment and the fairness to the gamer. So that that impacts people big time.
Exactly. Right? People that depend on those modes. Right, you can't ignore it because it does impact the gameplay.
Any review...
It absolutely affects it.
Any review that says, I'm not going to talk about microtransactions or their impact, that is a useless review. I have no respect for that review of 2K whatsoever, if anyone who says that, because, as I said, the whole journey in my career, how fun it is, depends on the pushiness of the recurrent revenue mechanics. And that is what causes that problem at the beginning of my career. And the fairness to the gamer. So that absolutely has to factor in. I don't respect any review that intentionally omits that. I mean, you don't need to spend paragraphs on it, but you need to acknowledge its impact. And with that being said, I would probably say 2K23 has an argument to be top 10 in the series all time. I do feel very strongly about it. I'm not so sure about top 5, though, because there's too many drawbacks, both in the mechanics, not being quite as good as previous games in certain aspects, or or of course the microtransactions, but the depth and the general quality of the gameplay does rank it very high. So I do think it's up there. I'm not going to say it's the best. It's not my favorite, but it's a damn good game.
The gameplay issues that I mentioned make it so the game can be really fun when you're messing around. Like co-op with my brother, you're playing Legends in my NBA, where we have stat goals. We know we're going to blow out the computer. We're playing on Hall of Fame, but we're stacked. Like, our team is stacked. So, we have stat goals, and we want to make great highlights and, hit on as many stat goals as we can. So we're just it's almost like a fun, loose experience. It's not super competitive. My team, I'm playing Domination. There's only 3 difficulty levels: Semi-Pro, Pro, and All-Star during the Domination challenges. And my team is stacked. So, I go into those loose, trying to make great highlights, trying to get the players that I want, and it's just this loose experience. So those gameplay issues that I mentioned don't show their face as much. It doesn't hurt as much. The moment you try to get competitive with NBA 2K23, like if you're playing like local head-to-head, or like you had stated, online, you're trying to be competitive, and you're trying to win and all of this stuff, and your opponent is using either like a regular NBA team or a classic team, or they're using juiced up my players and all of that stuff. That's when all of those gameplay issues really show their face. And I don't think that NBA 2K23 is great for competitive, realistic play. Really, I think it's right. Well, not just online scenes. Just like my brother and I can't even play it seriously head to head locally. Like, we can't do it because the skating and the suction and all of those gameplay issues that I mentioned, that the shooting, all of that stuff, it rears its head, and it ends up being this huge issue when you're trying to be competitive with somebody else. Like, the gameplay isn't good for competitive play, in my opinion. And I think that's where, if they were able to, if you want solution-based, like what I think would fix it, is you make the foot planning better, you loosen up that mid-range game, you remove some of that suction, and you fix the shooting. If you can fix those 3 issues, and I don't know who's going to be listening to this podcast, but this is my recommendation. If you focus on fixing those 3 issues for NBA 2K24, I think that you could possibly hit a home run, and that game can truly compete from a gameplay perspective to some of the games on the old motion system.
So, lightning round, NBA 2K23 in a nutshell. What are the biggest strengths and weaknesses for you?
Strengths, being able to make great highlights, the unbelievable depth Like there's something for both my brother and I to sink our teeth into. We're both into my NBA. I'm playing my team because of all the depth. There's something for us to play, right? We've gotten our money's worth as a result. I think that the game pops from a visual perspective overall. I think the graphics are great. I think that the gameplay depth is very important. I know it sounds silly, but, just the ability to do a double crossover, to be able to conduct a spin move, one way or the other, to jump stop into a jam, to, spin into a jam, to back your guy way down into the paint and then just throw it down on him. So like dominate a mismatch, to be able to have some of the authenticity in there, to be able to, utilize Kareem's real hook shot, to be able to go in and do a dunk with Jordan where it looks just like Jordan, to be able to posterize somebody with Clyde Drexler and it looks like the dunk that he did on Bill Cartwright in the 1992 finals. Those are major strengths. And it's the type of stuff that keeps me on the game. The no contracts in my team, the fact that that mode is so deep and it allows me to play domination and sink, by the end of it, hundreds of hours into that mode and whatnot. So I think that the biggest strengths is all of that content for offline players, the great highlights, and some of the authenticity aspects, something for everybody. Weaknesses, it's mostly the gameplay. It's just those three big pieces. It's the skating, and it's the suction, and it's the shooting. If they could iron out those three big issues and they could improve on those for NBA 2K24, I'll even spend more time on the game and you'll see even more highlights from the game and I'll even promote it more. But really the weaknesses come down to those gameplay aspects and then the often rushed classic team content, classic player content.
I think we're going to cover much of the same ground. For me, the strengths are obviously the depth, the variety. Even within the modes themselves, there's so much to sink your teeth into, and you can avoid things that you don't like. The gameplay is generally enjoyable, very solid across the board. A lot of the improvements are kind of, for me, more minor tweaks that you could make and still have a great improvement in NBA 2K24. My team has made some great moves as far as removing the contracts, as you said, such a big deal. The Jordan Challenge, the focus on offline content, the innovation with my NBA eras, the presentation, definitely strengths across the board. It is a fun game at the end of the day. Biggest weaknesses, it is the worst my career mode, easily. The online scene is still very toxic and from a gameplay perspective, very unbalanced. There are legacy issues there, unfortunately. There is a lack of attention to detail in the rosters that really needs to be there. And yes, some of the gameplay aspects, as you said, are annoying. But it is a very enjoyable game. It is the best in a few years, to say the very least. The best on this generation. I know there's only been 3 games on this generation, but you want it to get better every year, and it has improved upon its predecessors. I think you can make an argument that it is a top 10, top 15 game in the series, at the very least. Some people are calling it their favorite and the best game in the series. I do see their argument, and I think,
and good for them. I want them to love it.
Absolutely.
That's the thing that people don't understand. Is Andrew and I, Andrew and I want to see those positive comments. We want people to enjoy the Jordan Challenge, my NBA eras. We want people to enjoy online play, and I want to make a point because I didn't mention it under weaknesses. Obviously, a huge weakness is the gambling mechanics.
Yes,
is the price of things to upgrade your player and the kind of the pay to win stuff. So I do not want to discount that. That is such a big issue. It's one of the biggest issues.
And yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I almost forgot to mention that. The lack of goodwill. That is a recurring issue. Recurrent revenue, recurring problems, if you will. There's a title for an article, Derek. But yeah, the lack of goodwill. Also, doing things like being very quick to fix problems that affect them, even things that don't really affect their bottom line, like patching the debug menu that allowed us to play with my NBA era rosters out in exhibition in Play Now. That being very quick to fix that while dragging their feet on fixing VC issues. They've only just fixed the issue with the Daily Pick'em, which of course is how you get some extra VC. A month into the season, that's how long it took them to fix that. So that is a problem. I also want to mention
the broadcast camera bug is still there too for Series X.
I need to check the My Career animations bug, because that was supposed to be fixed in patch 2.0 and it wasn't. So it might be patch 3.0. I will follow up on that next week. I know this is our final review kind of thing, but I will follow up on that issue just to after I fire it up again.
Oh, I need to bring up one more thing really quick, just so in case we have any listeners here that is like a decision maker. Give us the ability to remove that damn dunk meter.
Yeah.
Instead of having to turn off all gameplay indicators in order to remove it. It's something that, I understand why it would always have to be present if maybe you're playing online and whatnot. But for offline gamers, there should be an option for us to turn the dunk meter off. We don't even have to have the ability to turn the functionality off, which I think would be also another nice step to be able to turn off the timing aspect of it. But, my brother and I are used to it now. But the visual. Give us an option to turn off the dunk meter.
And I know we're focused on the next-gen version, mostly in this review, Derek, but the current-gen version, what I like about that, it does have very similar strengths and weaknesses. It doesn't have all of the features of next-gen, but they really put time and attention into the current-gen version, the PC version, and it's worthwhile as well.
Yeah, the reason why I didn't kind of separate them in the review is because they've brought so many of the gameplay aspects and feature aspects from next gen over to current gen.
That was refreshing.
With the exception, obviously, of my NBA eras. But the dribbling on next gen and current gen is so similar. So much of the gameplay is similar, including the shooting and whatnot. So I think that the reviews that we gave oftentimes are just going hand in hand for both current gen and next gen.
That's true. So that's our pretty much final review of NBA 2K23. I'm sure there are going to be issues we touch on moving forward. I will circle back to that My Career animations issue next week. I'll make a point of researching that. We did want to finish up with some comments from the community. The Live King, Steve from the Dot, says, might be the best next-gen version of the game after this last patch. Knowledge Bone says, thieves, I tell you, but the gameplay is pretty awesome and modes are really decent. Chuck, at ChuckLA92, says, it's on my list for 3 games to play on a desert island. So, yeah, lots of positivity around 2K23, which is honestly what we want to see. We want to critique the game, Derek, when there are problems, but we want to enjoy these games, and we have been, and people are enjoying 2K23 as well, so that's been nice to see this year.
Nice to see Chuck LA enjoying the game. He's been posting a lot of highlights of Kobe and Shaq. I know he loves his Lakers. I mean, it's in his name and whatnot, but he's been submitting a lot of highlights from NBA 2K23 for the NLSC top 10 plays of the week, and I love that people are getting some enjoyment out of it.
And shout out to Chris Manning, of course. LD2K replied saying he always loves his convos, and if you have tuned in, Chris, I hope you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, and I also want to point something out, and Chris may want to hear this. A lot of what Andrew and I are talking about related to some of the unfair mechanics, especially online, we know that that's the suits.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out. We're not jumping, down the throat of the developers. We're not yelling at the developers, the people that are, implementing the art and gameplay and all of that stuff. Really what it comes down to is we know that those decisions related to microtransactions mostly come from the suits. And this is something that, it doesn't matter to a gamer where it comes from. It's the fact that it's unfair to them, right? So that's why there's a lot of people who, they'll get mad at Dazar, or they'll get mad at Chris Manning, or they'll get mad at somebody else that they know that works for 2K. But those people oftentimes are not the people that are making these decisions.
Exactly. Yeah, it's coming from above, and it is an unfortunate part of gaming. But maybe we can tailor our suggestions to try and get the fairest of both worlds. We have to look.
We got to talk about it. See, that's the thing is we got to talk about it. It's not hating; it's a real issue.
Exactly.
And we're consumers, and we have a right to critique.
Definitely. But I think if there's one takeaway from the show, Derek, our opinion of NBA 2K23 pretty positive for the most part, and I think that they can really build upon that for 2K24.
It could be worse, and I'll tell you what, I do have high hopes for 2K24, so I'm actually looking forward to the next release, and that's a plus. Because after 2K18, I was like, oh no. But hey, Andrew, why don't we get into some retro content, which I know so many of our listeners love.
Yes, from NBA 2K23 to NBA Live 2003, it's time to open up the mailbag.
to the mailman. Slamming it down with a nasty dunk.
So I asked the community to name the top 4 highest dunk-rated players in NBA Live 2003. So number 1 is 99, 2 is 99, 3 is 99, 4 is 98. And the bonus question was, can you also name the dunk rating for Michael Jordan, the Wizards version in NBA Live 2003? And the way I was looking at it is if they could get it within 5 of his real rating, so 5 either way, then I would give them credit. So we'll see if anybody got that.
So I didn't look at the ratings, so I can play again. I'll throw out my guesses there first. If I can ask for a hint, is this just current players, or does this also include historical players in Live 2003?
Only current players.
Only current players. Okay. I'm going to say that the 99s are Vince Carter, Shaq, and Kobe, and the 98 is Tracy McGrady.
Got a couple of them. So Shaq is 99 on dunk. Vince Carter, Jason Richardson.
Yes.
Then Kobe is the 98. Jason Richardson makes sense. He had just won the dunk
Completely
contest.
Forgot about J-Rich, yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. So Wizards Jordan, man, I'm trying to remember. 78?
55.
55, yes.
So
yeah.
This actually makes sense because not as in I think it should be higher. I mean, they have Deshaun Stevenson at 97.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I've never thought Deshaun Stevenson
he was in a
an
dunk
amazing
contest.
Dunker. But he's never been a great dunker.
No.
But anyway, so remember we played that NBA Live 2003 game? We used the All-Star teams. And remember, it took you until the last couple seconds of the game to get a dunk with Jordan. And it was the most basic dunk in the game.
Yes.
I knew from that game, even without looking at the rating, that his dunk rating was going to be really low.
He does have a dunk package that's only got a couple of dunks in it. So combined with the low rating and that dunk package, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Right, and he didn't dunk a lot as a Wizard, so it actually works out. Right, so for a game that's probably the most arcade in NBA Live's history, NBA Live 2003, it is the most arcade-leaning game. Just ridiculously fast-paced action where you can't adjust the speed and players throwing it down from all over the court and everything. They somehow made it possible to make Jordan kind of realistic in the amount that he throws
a natural sim aspect of Live 2003, yeah.
Right, is Wizards Jordan dunk. I don't think anybody was close to guessing that in the responses.
No, I do remember changing his dunk package in the rosters because I felt he should dunk a little bit more. Because he did make a few dunks in his final seasons with Wizards there. But yeah,
the one in the All-Star game where he throws it down on Duncan off the baseline, that was Jordan-esque.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
And he did a standing dunk in his final game against the 76ers as well. So, I mean, he definitely could still get up. But, yeah, that's 55. That's probably the lowest dunk rating that he's had in a game.
Oh, by far. So here's some other notables, though, really quick, before we get to the community's responses. Stromile Swift, 97. Mourning, 97. Darvin Ham, 94. Kevin Garnett, 97. Kenyon Martin, 93. Baron Davis, 94. Tracy McGrady, 97. That was a good guess. Sean Marion, 93. Rasheed Wallace, 97. That's too high. Gerald Wallace, 97. Chris Webber, 97. Duncan, 97. Desmond Mason, 97. Well-deserved. How about that under the leg dunk in the dunk contest in real life with Desmond Mason?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, again, like I stated, Deshaun Stevenson, 97. Darius Miles, 97. Michael Finley, 94. Jerry Stackhouse, 97. Steve Francis, 97. And Jonathan Bender, 93.
So, getting to the community's responses now. Roger Ward, one of the NBA Live 2001 legends, of course, guessed Shaq, KG, Duncan, Iverson, and Jordan at 90. And I do believe that the 90s All-Stars Jordan is 99 as well, I believe. But Iverson, that was kind of out of left field, but no.
Maybe Roger's been playing NBA Shootout because Mike Bibby, Bobby Jackson, and all these little guards, can throw it down. Maybe that's why I made that guess. No, Iverson, I didn't check his rating, but he's nowhere near that. He did have some pretty big dunks early on in his career. Like that tip dunk he had.
Yes.
I think what was it, his rookie year, climbing up over the defense and throwing it down one-handed. He definitely could still throw it down as a nugget as well. In like 06, 07, and 07, 08, there's some footage of him throwing it down there. So it's not that he couldn't, but I don't think he was anywhere near the top with the dunk rating.
The other NBA Live 2001 legend, of course, Nate Starshow, Shaq 99, Duncan 99, Garnett 99, and T-Mac 98. So we also thought, as I did, T-Mac and Jordan Dunk 85.
Yeah, and Duncan was a good guess too in there because his dunk rating is 97, so he was very, very close. I had a feeling the Wizards' Jordan guesses would be a lot higher than what his dunk rating actually is in the game.
Next up is Cortez at Heyo Court. Number 1, Vince Carter. Number 2, Tracy McGrady. 3, Steve Francis. 4, Kobe Bryant. And a Jordan rating of 80. So once again, similar guesses there, and very close on Steve Francis and Tracy McGrady, of course.
You can't knock anybody for guessing Steve Francis and T-Mac, because if I hadn't looked at it, I would have probably considered them for the top 4.
And finally, we have Brett Cox at B_dog_78. Guesses Kenyon Martin, Vince Carter, Stromel Swift, and J. Rich, and Wizards Jordan 75 dunk rating. And yeah, once again, I can't believe I overlooked Jason Richardson because, defending dunk contest champion.
I also feel like somebody knows their basketball history if they're guessing Stromel Swift, right? Because he wasn't a star. And I love it when people, mention players like Stromel Swift, whether it's like a guess or like they're just talking about basketball history and they bring him up and everything, because he wasn't a superstar. He wasn't a star, but he was an excellent dunker, and he was a power dunker, and he's really fun to use in video games.
No, that's true. I always enjoyed seeing him show up in the top 10 and the top 10 countdown and NBA action and so forth. And you're right, it's a sign of not just being passionate about basketball video games, but really being passionate about the NBA as well, and knowing your stuff.
And there's definitely a lot of people in the NLSC community and people that follow us on Twitter that are super knowledgeable about the game and its history. And thank you to the community for taking part in the NLSC Top 10, which I thought was fantastic this week. Submitting highlights and interacting with it. People taking part in the mailbag, as far as like NBA Live 2003 ratings. Just taking part in that every single week, and then also answering the question about NBA 2K23 and where you rank it in history. We have a great community. I appreciate them.
Absolutely. We thank you for supporting all of our content, and keep it locked for all the goodness yet to come. With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in. We invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, NBA-live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us, and of course, stay up to date with all of our aforementioned content. So Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can reach me at D43G and at D4384 on Twitter. That's the platform where I'm the most active. You can also reach me on YouTube. Check out my content there, D43. And I am on the NLSC forums as a team member, D43.
I am Andrew in our forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. Our Instagram is NLSC Basketball. Our YouTube is youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, NBA-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.